How do I sound?
Things are getting a little bit different here. And if you don't watch the video version, you don't know. And the video version we don't promote. So you might not know that we have a video version, but we do have a video version. It's on YouTube. And I guess you can
At
link
the
to it.
walk car
Yeah, at the walk, youtube.com/at,
slash.
the little at symbol, the walk car. We also have links to it in the on the walkcar.com. But Ed has changed his mic and studio setup for this week. So you could go and check that out. We're dialing it in. So we're seeing how this week turns out and then go for it. The problem with all this like podcasting stuff is you change one piece of equipment and it changes like everything.
Yeah,
Just
kind of a domino
everything.
effect.
Yeah, I changed mine a while ago. But who am I? I'm Phil Royle. I'm one of I crack myself up every time I do this. I'm one of the podcast co-hosts. Small secret here. We took last week off because I was traveling. So I haven't done a podcast in 2 weeks. And I am so rusty. It is shocking how when you don't exercise a muscle, you just lose it. So I've been doing content stuff for like 2 decades, and I'm sad for my Hoonigan friends, which I knew a couple of that are now so out of business. They were all the people. Did you hear about the Hoonigan? It's going bankrupt.
Yes, I did
Uh,
see that.
yeah, they all like a lot of those guys came up at well, Brian Scotto more than any of them like came up when I did. So I'm sad to see that whole era end because I've been rooting for him this whole time because I'm like finally somebody from my era has made it. Anyway, buy a t-shirt. That's where I was going with that. Thewalker.com/store.
Oh, I'm not. And by the way, I'm not wearing my latest bit of apparel.
No, I
I should.
well, I put
Next
something on.
episode.
I put something on thewalkcar.com/store, and you purchased it, and it's the best part of what I when I do that. It's because I know you're going to buy everything I put up there. So I wish everybody else would too. How about we just jump into this with
Yes.
you talk, and I'll recenter myself.
Ed Sanchez, likewise, 20 plus years in automotive content creation and moderation, day job, automotive electronics industry analyst, and co-founder and co-host of the What Car blog and podcast.
I went on a trip for a different job, and I went to the middle of America. Do you want to guess how many EVs I saw on the road?
Three.
One. I saw one. Now, where I went, there were tons of Model S's, not Model S's, Model 3s. I saw one Model S on the road. I saw no other EVs on the road. And I drove, where I was going was about an hour from the airport. So I got a lot of freeway time in, drove around the city, everything. It blows me away because I'm in Southern California, you're in Northern California, and like you can't sneeze without hitting a EV in our area.
Yeah.
They're everywhere. There, I found
F-150s.
I mean, it's kind of you run the gamut with what vehicles there are, and there
Yeah.
were little chargers here and there, but man, it's total different world. It's easy to forget that we are the bubble and everybody else is normal when it comes to EVs and
Yeah.
EV adoption. We have got a long way to go. But when I was at the event, it was a motorsport event because my day job is motorsport stuff. There was an electric powered go-kart which there's I wish I could remember all the details. It's from all the parts are imported from like Latvia or something. And it's got a
So
little
it wasn't
battery.
easy go or
No, it
club
was
card or
no, it was I really
oh,
I can't remember any of the
to
details.
Google it,
But
Latvian
it's
go-kart.
about it's about 100-volt system. It
Uh-huh.
can do about 12 minutes of active lapping, which this wasn't lapping, this was autocross stuff. So it could go
Oh,
all
go-kart. I
weekend.
thought you meant like golf cart, like for
No,
servicing the
no, like a
paddock.
go-kart.
Oh,
And you
okay.
could take like a Rotax go or a shifter cart, something like that, and you could convert it in about an hour to run electric.
All right.
And it was pretty slick. It was it was funny because go-karts are not um quiet and they are not clean burning. So
Yeah.
so with this guy, it was fascinating. I'm trying to pull up the name real quick. Um
So I do little context. This was in a different time in a previous iteration of actually my current company, which was acquired, but I don't want to get too far down that rabbit hole. But one of like the team building activities is would go out to a kart track afterward, and the team would, you know, would go around the track. And this was in the UK when we were still doing that. And they were two strokes. And literally you would, at the end of the night, you would just reek of like exhaust and oil. And
Oh yeah.
it was disgusting. It was fun, but it was kind of gross too.
Yeah. So this was, it weighed 450 pounds with the driver. And this tune that he had 44 horsepower, 90 pound-feet of torque. He was a little bit off the pace, but there was a tune that he could get that would take it up to like 52 or 55 horsepower or something like that. But the way it discharges batteries, they didn't want to like let it loose. But he's now importing it through this company, Shocked, SHOCKT. And it's comegetshocked.com if you want to check it out. It was fun. It was fun. It's fun when you go to these events and you see something new. And he just wanted, like his first version of this, it was very much like Mate Rimatz in this way. His first version was a home-built go-kart. He saw kids riding around his neighborhood in go-karts and stuff. And he was like, I want to do that, but I don't want it to be loud. And so he built himself an electric one and then started running. And then he found this Latvian company and started, he now is the US importer of this stuff. And they're working through bringing this in and safety requirements and everything. It, like I said, it's about 100-volt and it charges in like an hour and a half. You just pick up the battery, take it inside, plug it in.
Okay, removable
120 volt.
battery. Okay.
Yeah. It's
Interesting.
Dare I say it's the future. So, what's up with you?
Oh, nothing much. Had a level 2 charging experience this past weekend. Kind of strange. It was the network was PowerFlex. I don't know if I've mentioned it before, but so I plugged in at first, and it
This
was
is in your Model 3.
Model 3. It was only showing 8 amps, and it said, "You will take 9 hours to charge." And I'm like, okay, well, I would have been just as well off just plugging in at mom's on a 120 for that.
Yeah, seriously.
So I was like, this is kind of weird. And I was almost ready to call the 800 number and like say, hey, something's wrong. But then a dude in a Prius Prime pulled into the space next to me and plugged in. And as soon as he plugged in, it ramped up to like 30 amps. And it said, oh, only 2 hours of charge. So I don't know if something with the power management software or something, but when the other guy plugged in, it ramped up my power for some reason. I don't know.
That is bizarre. I'm no electrician, but I'm going to go out on a limb and say that's wrong. That doesn't seem.
I don't know if it's just a coincidence or what, but it's like
something happened. There was a rat stuck in the pipe somewhere, and the Prius Prime flushed it out.
Something, I don't know. It ended up working fine, but it was just kind of weird that it would start off at like such, because typically even in level 2 experience, it does have the initial handshake, but it usually ramps up the charge pretty quickly. So to have it like kind of hovering at around 8 amps, I'm like, something's wrong. So
was this it telling you that it was 8 amps, or is your car telling you that it's 8 amps?
This was the display, but also I looked in my car and it was also saying that until, like I said, the Prime plugged in and then it went.
So lesson learned: when you go to charge, always bring a Prius with you to plug in, just in case. You need
Evidently.
Apparently, that's the go fast secret to charging. The
So
other
speaking
go
of
fast,
charging-
yes, the go fast secret for charging for Lucid is the Gravity is going to be getting the NACS plug, and this made the news. TechCrunch reported on this, and I'm like, why didn't we already know this?
Well, yeah, it's kind of almost non-news because I think starting next, I mean, this is kind of how it was all based on previous announcements from other automakers. 2025 is going to be the big year where effectively the entire industry switches over to NACS. But we're now just starting to see official announcements on vehicles adopting this.
Well,
officially.
so this is now, When does this come out? You know, you wouldn't have thought that I just read this article. And the vehicle won't be ready until 2026, but we're getting closer and closer to these things. You know,
Yeah.
2024 is coming to a careening toward December here. So we're getting close to 2025. And not to jump a little bit ahead, but Hyundai is doing their Ioniq 5 model with NACS native, and that's coming out, isn't it later this year or early?
I think Q4. Yeah.
Yeah. So now all of this talk that we had about these companies going to NACS natively, that we
Mhm.
celebrated like a year
Mhm.
ago when the dominoes were falling, now we're hitting the point where it's actually happening, that
Mhm.
the Lucid Gravity will never come with CCS.
Mhm.
It will only come with NACS or
Mhm.
J3400, whichever you prefer to call it. And it's kind of exciting that this is
Yeah.
happening. And
Exciting or potentially terrifying for Tesla owners because
what
they're the walls of their walled garden are being knocked over.
I am seeing more and more superchargers with non-Teslas charging at them. Ever since they opened it
Yeah.
up with adapters, it was like overnight I started seeing superchargers with other cars. Oh, that reminds me. When I was in the middle of nowhere in Nebraska, there was a supercharger at the place where I went to go and
Mhm.
get food, the grocery store. That's what they call them now. There was a supercharger there, and I went several times. Not once did I see a vehicle at it. I
Hmm.
can't think of a time in California where I have seen a supercharger without at least one car parked in it.
Yeah.
It just it
In
kept
fact, more
blowing my
I'd say
mind.
more often than not in California, there's a line of cars waiting.
Yeah. There well, and now like I was saying that you see other vehicles like a Mach-E or something charging
Mhm.
at the supercharger, and there was literally nothing being charged. So okay, how terrified are you as a Tesla owner? Are you scared now that you're going to have to go and dirty yourself by charging with the unwashed masses at
Um,
CCS, or are
I've kind
you?
of accepted this as the fate of mass adoption. I think by and large it's a positive development. Um, but depending on the region, it will be an inconvenience for some Tesla owners because now suddenly they're going to have to share it with Mach-E's and Lucids and Hyundais and so
Ew.
forth. Um,
It seems like one of those things that it's a short-term inconvenience for a long-term good.
yeah, that's kind of how I see it. I am expecting superchargers, especially in California and other kind of EV, if you want to call them early adopter or enthusiastic adopters. They are going to initially get a little more crowded, I think. Um, but I think I'm not necessarily bothered by that. If anything, I'm hoping it'll be kind of the catalyst and the impetus for more aggressive build out of DC fast charging stations. Um, and it seems like the third party networks, the EVgo's charge points, um, Gilbarco Vita route with Connect, they're anticipating with this, and it seems like the upcoming designs of level 3 charging stations are incorporating like a modular cord kind of design where if they start out with CCS and they want to change to NACS, it's not a matter of having to tear out the entire charging station, but rather just opening it up, swapping out the cord. That's it. So I think the industry is anticipating and planning for this, but
I know that year or two ago, whatever it was, I was on a camping
uh-huh.
trip. I stopped off at a gas station to go and buy milk, and they had this was a gas station. It had a gas fuel pumps at the front, supercharger at the back, and then a
Mhm.
line of, and I can't remember the brand of other level 3 chargers. And at the other level 3 chargers, there was like a BMW i3 parked
Mhm.
there. The superchargers had a line out of the parking lot,
Mhm.
and then the gas station was just the gas station. There were, pumps being used, whatever.
Mhm.
Uh, and now, like, I wonder if now that they've opened up superchargers and there are going to be native vehicles that can pull in and park there, that there's going to be Tesla owners that are more willing to go to those other level 3 chargers.
I certainly would, not especially since I have the adapter for it. there's an adapter for that.
There is.
Also sold on the walkcar.com/store.
Yes, if you want a shirt that says
Um,
that.
Yeah, I certainly would. Now, the big question or the big variable in that is pricing. And I found, I'd say more so, and granted, usually I charge as a supercharger. I have charged at non-Tesla level 3s. The pricing can vary significantly depending on the region. Some of them have basically surge pricing, kind of like if you're used to doing ride hailing. So times of high demand, the price will go up. I've typically third party level 3, at least in my area, it's between the high 40s to maybe 50 to 60 cents a kilowatt hour. I have heard it during surge times going up to as much as $1 a kilowatt hour.
Wow.
In which case it kind of wipes out the cost advantage with, internal combustion. So I think that would be another factor to consider. It says, would I rather wait, 15 or 20 minutes to get a charger, or do I just want to, is time money in that instance? I'm like, you know what, I just want to juice up and get down the road. So I guess that's, are you willing to pay for the convenience, I guess?
Yeah, I feel like everybody should be willing to pay for the convenience, but on one hand, it's like, because it's so much where you were saying it gets comparable to the price of gas, and in many cases, like if you're driving a truck, then an EV truck, then you're probably better off driving a gas powered economy car if you were doing this just for the price. Don't spend the $100,000 and get a vehicle that's actually potentially costing as much as filling up with a gas car
or more,
or more than if you would have bought the Prius Prime that that helps you charge at this one particular level too. So I'm curious how this will all go. I'm sure in the long run it'll be fine. I know that we're kind of the bellwether when it comes to states. Like California is the one that sets a lot of these trends. Like what we see here is what leads to what happens in a lot of the rest of the country. And we're the first ones to see those lines at the superchargers. So I'm sure that we're going to be the first ones that also see outrage among Tesla owners, or whether or not they just move to the next station, and they try a different supercharger, or they try a different level 3. I'll be curious to observe and report.
Yeah. Well, I wonder how many Tesla owners have the CCS to Tesla adapter, or if we're going to see a shortage of those all of a sudden, because to your point, they'll be noticing the lines to the supercharger network now with Mach-E's and Ioniq 5s and whatever. And they'll say, well, there's nobody over here,
Well, that was it last week before? I don't remember.
Yeah.
God, everything seems like a year ago at this point. That Tesla's increased production of their NACS to CCS adapter for the Teslas. So they've increased their output of those adapters.
Yeah, but that's the opposite.
Well, no, for Tesla to go and charge to a CCS.
Oh, I thought you were talking about like the Mach-E's and the
no, initially, yes. I'm talking about those people going and charging at superchargers. But Tesla makes the adapter that you've got.
Yes.
Which is you can charge your Tesla at a CCS level 3.
I guess supposedly they make both, because my understanding is the adapter that was being supplied to Ford was sourced through Tesla.
Yes, that seems to be the case. But the Tesla to CCS, there was a story a week or two ago, whatever it was, that Tesla's NACS to NACS to CCS adapter, that they have increased the output of that. And quite possibly it's because of oversaturation at superchargers. That's my guess, because I don't know why else they would do it. Now that these cars are coming to market, they need somewhere for their Teslas to go and charge.
Well, I know, but then it may flip at some point where Tesla owners are saying, I want to be able to use Electrify America. Now, granted, they may say,
well, it's the adapter for them to use that. It's the adapter.
First?
I think we've talked ourselves into a circle and we're confused. Let's just go to the next. Let's go to the next topic. Yeah. So
another vehicle to use NACS.
Well,
3400.
Yeah, so we mentioned that the Gravity will get NACS natively, but
Mhm.
what's also happened in this last week is who is it that teased this? Lucid teases a silhouette of a midsize crossover. I guess their Model Y killer.
Supposedly, yeah.
Yeah. So who is this? Was this Rawlinson or who was this that revealed
This
a
this was part of so they did two announcements kind of back to back. They did one talking about a new software update where I guess Lucid's used to have Amazon Alexa as the voice assistant, but now Lucid has their own home baked kind of voice assistant system. So they're switching that. And then I don't know if this was part of Investor Day or something else. They're saying, oh, well, I can't remember. I think we mentioned this, I don't know if it was last week or the week before about there's some presentation where they said they were going to have three additional models in addition to the Gravity in the Air.
it sounds like that was at Pebble Beach.
Yeah,
So yeah,
yeah, Pebble Beach.
yeah.
Yeah. So I think this is a follow-up to that saying, oh, here it is.
Mm.
You know.
And the picture it looks like a SUV. That's
Yeah, I mean it kind of vaguely kind of looks like kind of the Alpha Stelvio a little, maybe a little Porsche Macan
it's got more
vaguely.
of a curvy roof than
Yeah. So
um
more kind of
than the
Model
Gravity.
Y-ish, I guess, from that standpoint.
Yeah. And
Kind of
ultimately
more of
that's what
a
it is their Model
well,
Y.
that's what they're aiming at
And
pretty clearly.
they're aiming at under $50,000,
Hmm.
which means 49,999 and 99 cents. Uh
Yeah.
roughly. And maybe even more, depending on how long it takes
Yeah.
for them to bring this to market. Because prices, as we've learned over the last 5 years, prices are
Can
variable.
vary. Yeah.
Yeah.
But I mean, kind of going with the whole Lucid ethos, they say it's going to be a high level focus on system efficiency. So without giving specific figures, they said they want to offer a range comparable to competitors, naturally Model Y, but they're going to try to do it with a smaller battery pack um, because enabled by system efficiency. So considering what they've done with the Air Pure rear wheel drive, which even though it's a larger, heavier car than the Model 3 is actually more efficient than the Model 3. So I don't see why they couldn't do it with this, other than the fact a crossover body style is inherently a little less efficient because of aerodynamic drag. So, but I mean, even still, I'm sure it'll be like 0.22, you know, CD.
Yeah, they've got the secret sauce.
Yeah.
And I'm curious where they can take this. The weird part is if we get into, like with gas cars, they have the horsepower wars, and everybody's got more
Hmm.
horsepower. And in trucks, it's how much can it tow?
Hmm.
Lucid's not going to win anything when it comes to battery size or recharge speed because their cars don't, it seems like from what I've been seeing, they don't recharge numerically faster, like how much power they can take in,
Hmm.
but the miles per minute that you're getting
Hmm.
back is more than most other cars.
Hmm.
It's a difficult number to explain to somebody of, oh, well, it's only charging at, 200 kilowatts or whatever, but it's actually getting you more distance per minute of
Yeah. Basically
charging
efficiency,
than
effectively. Yeah.
something that's charging at like 250 or 300 kilowatts.
Yeah. Well,
It's a
I mean,
very, it's like, it's, I don't know how the normies of the world are going to be able to
oh, the
understand any of
normies.
this. Yeah.
um, well, I mean, in specifically in the context of Lucid, sometimes it's the restrictions on the charger end. Like the car is capable of taking in more. Like you remember, I can't even remember the episode off the top of my head when we talked to Victor at New,
Yeah.
where they had this like basically massive fire hose level 3 charger that could just like pump massive amounts of power into the car. Um, and I guess this was kind of a test case with Lucid because the system capability was capable of taking that. But most public level threes just, even though sometimes they're advertised as like 250 kilowatt or 350. Very few actually output that much. So in a lot of cases, sometimes it's the charger, not the car. Sometimes it's the opposite. Like Chevy Bolts, I think they have, I don't know if they all, but some of them could only intake like 66 kilowatts of DC fast charging, and people were pulling up to like
Yeah.
150, 250 kilowatt chargers in their Bolt, and other people are like, "Yeah, you can't even use that." Yeah. You know,
Yeah,
so
I don't, yeah, it's, I don't know how this is all gonna
it's going to be an
play
interesting
out.
next couple of years for
If I
sure.
mentioned this is all a giant mess, if I mentioned that on a previous
It
episode,
is all a giant mess.
I don't understand how anybody can understand or
Well, I
how
mean,
we can
let's
expect people to know half
let's
of
add
this
to the
stuff.
complexity and talk about solid state batteries in the grander scheme of
So
things.
what's happening with this? Because I had a conversation with someone where this exact thing came up last week
Mhm.
while I was on a trip. So tell me what's happened, and I'll see if it jibes with
All
what
right.
he mentioned to me.
So Toyota, who is, I think, at least for the past couple of years, saying, "Oh, solid state batteries, we got big plans, big things in development." So the Japan's Ministry of Economy, Trade, and Industry, which I guess is, I don't know, FTC or DOE. I don't even know what the U.S. equivalent would be, but a big like government agency that I guess approves big industrial projects, um, approved Toyota's plans for solid state battery production. Um, Toyota is saying the start of production, not mass, but just, I guess, kind of pilot production, is going to be in 2026, with mass production, I guess, being planned for 2030. So,
Wah, wah.
so I guess they're kind of on Tesla time with this.
Well,
So
I don't know if they are. They're probably telling the truth. Because if they're on Tesla time and they've said 2030, there's
be
big
like
problems.
2040.
Yeah, and there's huge problems there. The earliest it would be 2035 at that point. So I was talking to the go-kart guy, and he was talking
Mhm.
about the batteries, and I was talking about, can you jam more power in faster? Can you get more power out quicker? Like, what are your limitations and everything? And he's saying, well, this Latvian company, and I can't remember where those batteries come from, but the
Probably China.
there are these batteries, and one of the things that they're dealing with now is they're looking at all these different types of batteries and different
Mhm.
manufacturers, and one of them was Toyota and solid state
For go-karts.
for go-karts. And that is what this Latvian company is looking at for these different, they've got like 3, 4, 5, whatever it was,
Mhm.
different potential battery suppliers. And one of them was Toyota and solid state. And I wonder
Hmm.
if that kind of aligns with this a little bit
With the
on
pilot production.
with pilot production. And where
Hmm.
would you put it? You put it in small applications, little boutique stuff, and see,
Mhm.
motorsports is one of the
Test it
places
out. Yeah.
that you would test it out. And, why not go-karts where you're just using a handful of cells? Like the battery pack was, I don't know, maybe a foot, just over a foot long, and,
Mhm.
7 or 8 inches wide, 7 or 8 inches
Mhm.
tall. It was like this rectangle fit, strapped it into the go-kart. So you're not running high number of batteries with that. And so
Mhm.
I'm going to keep on this guy a little bit, and I'm going to see where that goes.
Yeah.
That is potentially the first place that you're going to see
Yeah. Yeah.
Toyota
And also too,
solid state
there's no
batteries.
better stress test than motorsports.
Yeah.
I mean, if something's going to break, it's going to break while racing.
And the people racing understand that things
Yeah.
break, and
They're more forgiving. They're like, oh,
yeah,
if they got a spare, they'll just swap out the spare and like, okay, we'll
yeah,
just box this one up, send it back to whoever. They can.
especially in the go-kart format, because it's
Mhm.
literally just strapped or bolted in. It's
Mhm.
not like a bottom frame, it's not anything. It's like a little
Mhm.
box that you put in. So that it's interesting that
Mhm.
this makes the news now, right after I had this conversation with the guy and he
Hmm.
mentioned Toyota, and I'm like, what? When he
That's
brought that
interesting.
up, because I
I
want Toyota to
yeah.
win. I
Yeah.
want them, well, not to, I mean, I don't care if they win. I want them to be there. I want them to succeed. And I think if they could do this with solid state and be that first company, I said it before, sound like a broken record. I think they are so far behind now
Yeah.
that
They would need that kind of a quantum leap
if
forward.
they
Yeah.
could do that, this is that quantum leap.
Yeah.
And it puts them in a whole other time,
Yeah.
like the TV show that nobody's heard of that's listening to this unless you grew up as a Gen
Unless you're
Xer.
Gen X. Yeah. Well, it sounds like maybe they got more of a plan than Northvolt. They're unfortunately not doing quite as hot.
Who are
So
they?
this is a Swedish battery company that was kind of a collaborative. I can't remember all the investors, but I think some Swedish, some German, whatever. I think the concept behind Northvolt was to try to create this kind of consortium type company that could compete with the Chinese. Um, that was kind of the bigger picture idea. But with all the, FUD market condition, whatever you think might be driving this, the softening demand for EVs, they've announced they're going to have to do layoffs, unfortunately. Didn't announce how many specifically. All told, they have almost 6,000 employees as of the end of 2023. So, yeah, I don't know what the bigger picture is for that, but
I think the bigger picture in all of this is you've got smaller companies like that and like Fisker
mhm,
and who else? I mean, Faraday Future is constantly going out of business. Canoe's going to be one of the next ones to fall. We had Lordstown. We had all these companies that come
mhm,
in. They're not necessarily battery manufacturers, but the point is small companies that come in trying to make it. And it
mhm,
is so difficult to make it. And
mhm.
I think Tesla had a huge advantage in the EV market.
Early start, yeah.
As an early start, nobody thought that it was going to make money for a long, long time, and it didn't. But the
Mhm,
problem is now is that even as I called it last week, a floundering Tesla,
Laddering forward,
they're floundering forward and they're making $1 billion a quarter. That
yeah.
is now the mark. So you have these other companies come in, and if this Swedish battery maker can't do it, you have somebody like Toyota coming in
Mhm,
who could afford to lose $1 billion on this, and they are going to absorb it. We're going to see, like before, it was like, oh, are these legacy automakers going to make it? I don't know if that's necessarily the question anymore. I think it's more of, are these small?
mhm,
Is the runway too short now
mhm,
for all of these small, lesser funded companies? And the companies that have the long runway are the Fords, are the GMs,
mhm,
the Toyotas,
mhm,
and that they're going to fail and it's going to take them a while, and Tesla's going to keep getting bigger and bigger and bigger. But
mhm,
what's going to also happen is you've got the boutique makers, the Canoes of the world, are not going to survive
mhm.
just because of the amount of money and then that it takes and the expectation for profit
Mhm.
from the investors.
Yeah, no, there's for sure going to be a massive amount of consolidation. I think companies with the technology focus, like Rimacs, like Lucid, will make it in some form. I think the ones trying to compete on kind of a commodity type scale will, I mean, sadly, I think are going to lose unless they have massive, massive capital backing. Um,
And I think
so
for the most part, that doesn't
yeah,
exist. I think
well, I
people
mean,
want the,
you have CATL, you have BYD, you Panasonic, LG, Samsung.
yeah.
I don't think they're going anywhere, but people trying to, or companies trying to compete with those guys, I don't know. That's going to
I
be a
think that
tough,
was
tough call.
Arrival, which oddly enough
Yeah.
got consumed by Canoe, of all companies. One of their claim to fame was they were making their own batteries, and like I don't know, it didn't
Yeah.
do them too well, did it?
Well, I mean, I think kind of having like a skunk works, like working on it, battery kind of strategy is good. But I think in the short term, ink a deal with CATL, Panasonic, LG, just, you know, get it shipped. Cause yeah. Anyway.
Yeah, I. It's sad because it means that there's not going to be as many. I guess so. The thing with the EV world is that we're used to seeing the scrappy little companies come up. And for the last,
Hmm.
like, you go back 5, 6, 7 years and it was all scrappy little companies. and now they're all dying off. And I could be completely wrong. It could be that this company is not a scrappy little company. It could be a big company. I've not heard of them. I don't know. But it seems like all of the scrappy little companies are kind of, they're not so much in existence anymore, or if they are, they're very small, or there are very few of them. And it's kind of a shifting, a changing of the guards, or a shifting of the paradigm, or whatever you want to say, for the viability for small companies anymore, just because of the expectation of profit on such a short
I mean, like I said, it could be a whole other episode, but the whole labor cost differential between China and Western Europe, that's a big factor.
Wait, China doesn't pay as well? Is this breaking news?
China has multiple advantages that fairly or unfairly have put them in kind of a commanding position. I kind of don't want to get into it too much because that'll completely take over the rest of the episode. But anyway, so kind of the other side of this, kind of figuring out what to do when these batteries are used up. There is a company called Scilib, I'm guessing.
That's how I'd say it.
Cylib. Scilib. Okay.
It's kind of like Madlib,
Scilib.
but with more cyborgs, I guess.
more cyber.
Yeah.
So this is a company that had some VC backing from Porsche Ventures, I guess, and also Bosch, two pretty big companies in Germany.
I've heard of them.
Scilib?
No, the other two.
Oh.
Porsche and Bosch.
They're opening, basically, I guess, kind of the European equivalent of Redwood Materials, where they're going to reclaim and recycle used EV battery packs. There's no timeline on when they're going to scale this or be in production or whatever, but they're claiming they will be the largest end-to-end lithium-ion battery recycling facility in Europe once, they're to scale.
But
so
the problem with this is this shoots a hole in all of the arguments against battery electrics that people use. And what are you going to do with all the batteries when they're dry up and stop being usable? That's always the argument. And the more recycling plants that we have, the less that argument's going to actually hold water.
Yeah.
What's going to be the next argument against them? Or will they just ignore that this is in production, that they're actually
they're just going to double down on drill baby drill. That seems to be the
go back to the trusty
main,
old fracking and drill baby drill.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And honestly, this will kind of accentuate the virtuous cycle of EVs, because the whole knock against them, oh, you're having to do all this environmentally destructive mining and processing, so forth.
And it's worse than a gas
child
vehicle.
labor,
it's all of this is
cobalt. Yeah.
It's worse than producing a gas vehicle. That is
initially, yes.
But that is a fact. Car for car, gas to electric, it is worse to make an electric car. That is an absolute fact.
Yeah.
But the break even is something like, depending on who you believe, it's somewhere between
30 to 60,000 miles.
Yeah. I've heard everything from 15,000 to 50,000 and up, but it's not a million miles.
Yeah.
Even if it was 100,000, you still go beyond that in all modern cars. You will hit that point and continue on, and it is better. And then when the battery dies, then
and the advantage to recycling batteries is the materials have already been processed once. Now, they may have degraded over time through usage, but you're basically starting further ahead than native minerals you're extracting from the ground, is what I'm getting at.
Yeah.
So I guess the amount of process and the environmental impact of re-refining depleted battery packs versus, having to, mine lithium and cobalt and nickel from the earth, you're that much further ahead. So
yeah, this is how boring I am. I was watching somebody sandblast a car on YouTube the other day. Because I live that rock star life, and they did it outside, and I've never really watched this process before. They sandblasted it, and then they swept up the driveway, put all of the sandblasting material through a filter, and then sandblasted again. They reused it. So they're losing stuff along the way because the air picks up stuff,
Yeah.
whatever. And, it gets stuck on the wall or in your clothes, whatever. But everything that fell on the floor, say that was 70% of it, they
Reuse, yeah.
reuse it. And that's what it is with batteries. Essentially, you're sweeping up the leftovers and you're reusing it. And it's not going to be 100%. Maybe it's 70%. Maybe it's 50%, but you're better off. And you can't do that with gasoline. You cannot capture the gasoline, the burnt gasoline out of the air.
Well, I mean, the proponents of e-fuels would maybe take issue with that. But to your point, not to the extent that you can with batteries.
Yeah.
I mean, yes, hypothetically, you can harvest CO2 out of the atmosphere and recombine it and create new, they don't like calling them fossil fuels, but liquid hydrocarbons, so to speak. But again, and this gets into the whole thing, like with hydrogen too, is the amount of energy it takes for the processing. You'd be better off just getting it straight from the grid, straight into the battery. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah. Now, it's interesting you mentioned that because we want to go and talk a little bit about motorsports. And one of the things that you had mentioned here was Dodge has got 1,000 horsepower EV rally car, which is the Nitro Cross Group E class, which has been running for a few years. So this is just basically a Dodge Hornet, is it? Body.
Yeah, but it's kind of a bobtail. It doesn't look like a regular Hornet.
And the chassis is a spec chassis. So it's just a cap dropped right on there. But there was that, I can't remember, it was the FIA had a series that was a off-road dirt series, and they were doing, was it them or am I confusing them? One of the series was doing hydrogen, and no, they were doing batteries. Now they've gone to hydrogen to just do something different. But I think battery is kind of the way to go with all of this, because the one that was doing, is it Formula E? I'm getting all my series confused now. They have a boat that's actually powered by a hydrogen boat, and it seems
that
so
sounds like a
difficult.
potentially dangerous combination to me, but anyway.
So there was two motorsports things, isn't there? One of them is actual motorsports, and the other one is not.
Well, it's a motorsports company, but
yes. So let's talk about the Dodge, and because it'll be quick. I got nothing to say about it. 0 to 60 in 1.4 seconds or something is what they claim. But it's just, if you watched any of these Nitro groupie
I can't say that I
things,
have.
Okay, so I have said for a while, like NASCAR, keep it internal combustion. IndyCar, Formula One, batteries don't work for these. You want the experience, you want the noise, you want the rumbling, you want the ability to have pit stops. Right now, with the technology that we've got, unless you can charge a car in 2 seconds, it isn't going to fit into what we know as current motorsports. And to suddenly say, as Formula E discovered, oh, get out of that car and jump in another one, people laugh at you. So you need to keep these with the old way of doing it. Yeah. When they did this Nitro Cross Group E thing, it's worth YouTubing it. It is really good. Their social media people and their marketing people, whatever, they're flying drones during the event. It's like short, very quick rallies. And that's what it was before, even when it was gas powered. It was very short format. They kept the format the same. But these cars are amazing, and the racing is incredible, and they are so insanely fast.
So you would say in this context, electrification works.
Yeah, especially with this and how they marketed it. But it fit into the existing system. If they would have changed their system, I don't know if it would have worked. But what it is just incredible. And I mean, they're doing this racing in like 5 cars, and they've got drones flying off the bumpers, racing with these things. It's incredible. And this is not really a Dodge. This isn't really the Hornet. This Dodge didn't have anything to do with this.
From that standpoint, it's like NASCAR. I mean, you have
yes,
Fords and Toyotas and Chevys.
Yeah,
they're all
silhouettes.
the same car.
Yeah, they're very much a silhouette with a spec build to it. These are exactly that. These Nitro Cross cars are literally, from what I understand, a chassis with suspension, with motors, with batteries, and then the manufacturer is paying to put their cap on the top of it. There's another company, I want to get through this real quick and then end, because we are way over at this point. ProDrive, which you asked me before this if I heard of ProDrive. Yeah, but I've only heard of ProDrive as Colin McRae. Like Colin McRae is kind of synonymous with ProDrive with the Subarus back in
Uh-huh.
the stage rally stuff.
Hmm.
So they're now doing something really exciting, right?
Well, if you're in the logistics industry, maybe, but
So they're making a little delivery car.
yeah.
So it's ProDrive is manufacturing this? Or are they doing it for one of the
Um,
things with companies like this is they do a lot of stuff. If you look at
like
many
contract
motorsports companies,
engineering, yeah.
they do a lot of it. So like I went and I took a tour years ago of All American Racers,
Hmm.
and they got their start in the 1960s with Formula One driver Dan Gurney. And I went in, took a tour of the facility, and I rounded the corner, and they were doing war drones in this one
Hmm.
office. And that was the segment from that. So this was built off of a guy that raced with the same car club that I did, that worked his way up to
Hmm.
Formula One in the 60s. They do war drones. Then around the corner, and they're doing some airplane stuff. And then
Hmm.
we go to the back, and all of a sudden they're doing the landing pods for SpaceX. Uh, their
Oh, wow.
their rockets that where they land backwards or when
Yeah.
they come down, and you see the feet come down. That's produced by All American Racers. I have toured that facility and watched them lay the carbon fiber, and uh,
Wow.
yeah, it's fascinating stuff. But these companies that do motorsports, they are far from that. Like
They're basically
solely,
contract engineering
yeah,
folks.
they've got so much knowledge that comes from motorsports,
Hmm.
and ProDrive is no different. They've got an aerospace wing to them as well, so to speak.
Hmm. Hmm.
They do like airplane stuff, but I didn't know that they did like. Tell me about these.
It's a collaboration with so the joint venture company, I guess called ELM Mobility, and in collaboration with a British design firm who I have not heard of, called I'm sure I'm going to butcher this, uh, Astheimer.
I'm sure that's exactly how it's said.
Anyway, they're these last mile urban delivery vans. I guess the goal is to get them into production by 2028. Anyway, but getting back, I can't even remember what episode it was. Your sister, um,
Dr. Joanne Leach. Yep.
Dr. Joanne Leach. So she deals a lot with, like, I guess, urban planning and logistics. And so there's a big drive in a lot of major metropolitan areas, primarily in Europe, like London and some cities in Germany, where they want to basically completely eradicate internal combustion from the city center for health reasons, so on and so forth. So this kind of ties into that, where, if it's going from like a depot to a building in the city center, it's emissions free. Sometimes these are a little smaller than your traditional delivery vans, but they serve a purpose. So yeah,
This thing is super cute. I love how they didn't care about aerodynamics at all because this thing ain't gonna be going very far
I mean,
very
it's
fast.
maybe top speed, maybe 35, 40 miles an hour, I'm guessing.
Yeah, they just don't have to worry about any of that. Visibility must be incredible because it's all windows at the front. You can't see behind yourself,
Yeah.
but it's what cameras are for. This is the cutest thing I've seen in a long time. This is
Yeah.
awesome.
So
This
yeah,
is
we'll probably be seeing more of these. No, I didn't see anything about US. I'm assuming predominantly Europe at first. Maybe some activity in like New York, LA, possibly, but yeah. I think we'll probably be seeing more of these types of vehicles in the years ahead for sure.
And who knows,
So,
maybe this will enter Dakar or something because they've got like really weird classes in that. Maybe ProDrive will
that'd
take
be
it
kind of
there.
cool.
Let's see here. So this article, Car and Driver, that you linked to, the brand plans to build these by 2028 and sell them for the equivalent of $33,000.
Not bad.
Yeah, and then you just get into charging requirements and whatnot. But like you said, I mean, cities are requiring this. You get into London and um, you
I
can't
don't know,
drive
Munich,
internal combustion. Yeah.
Stuttgart. I can't even remember the German city, but there was one German city that's like really strict about, um, internal combustion in the city center. So yeah, I mean, like it or not, this is the way things are going. So
And this is where the company that we mentioned before, the is it Israeli? The company where it's a
yeah,
skateboard and it's
the
each
modular like corner
Yeah,
motor.
everything. So
Yeah.
it's battery in the middle, and each corner is independent of the other one. So you can drive this thing with a remote control. You can put the steering wheel anywhere or nowhere. And this is where they're gonna thrive, is things like this. Like this is very much a generic skateboard
Yeah.
with a box on top of, literally a box on top of it. So I want these in America. I think these are cool.
Well, might
I've seen
happen.
bright drops everywhere in my neighborhood. Like that's all I get now. We are in
Now
my
the
neighborhood. We're
Chevrolet
converted
Bright
over.
Drop.
Yes. Well, are they keeping the bright drop name? They're changing it from bright drop, so it's
I think they're changing Bright Drop from being the brand to Bright Drop being the model line. So I'm assuming it's going to be Chevrolet Bright Drop, whatever.
because
Or
that
they
makes
might
a
just
difference.
drop Bright Drop altogether and it'll be the Chevy EV 600 or whatever. I don't know.
Yeah. Who knows?
Who knows?
Well, I'll tell you, because apparently I'm in ground zero when it comes to bright drops.
I still have not, or maybe I've seen like one, but weirdly, I see the Amazon, the Rivian Amazon vans everywhere.
And I've not seen a single one of them.
So we're living like this flip-flop universe. I
Yeah,
guess.
it's weird. Everything we talked about, there will be links in the show notes. Show notes can be found in the podcast, also on thewalkcar.com. While you're on thewalkcar.com, head to thewalkcar.com/store and purchase something that helps support the blog and the podcast. That could be a t-shirt, it could be a water bottle, it could be a hat, it could be a backpack. If you've got something you would like us to make, or you've got a comment about the podcast or the blog, email us, hello@thewalkcar.com. You could also find us on social media and leave us a message. We're on all the social medias. You can try and tag us. I don't know how that works. I'm old. I don't
Let
care.
the kids figure it out.
Yeah, the kids will do it for me. And then big companies, I do care about their money a lot. So thewalkcar.com/advertise, ProDrive, give us a call and we can help you promote your cute little thing. And bring it to America and let me test drive that. I will drive around and do some delivery route with this thing. And I will be grinning the
It'd be
whole
great for
way.
our YouTube channel.
Yes. Yeah. Smash that like button and subscribe or whatever. I don't know. I'm just doing it because I'm told I have to. The boss said we need to do that or something. I don't know.
Next week,
Maybe something special again?
maybe. Stay
Maybe.
tuned.
We'll find out. I'll find out. I so don't know what's going on right now. Talk to you in a week.
All right.